Шановні друзі і колеги, прошу.
Esteemed friends and colleagues, please take your seats. We're about to start our event, Ukraine, one step away from Entso-E and energetic independence, energy independence from you-know-who. This story with Entso-E is story number one, has the headlines, and as a token of that we have Denis Shmyhal opening this conference, Prime Minister of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen. There is a procedure, a security manual giving me the signs. In 2017, if anybody would say that 4 years later we would be one step away from joining Entso-E, many people would be skeptical about that, and the work that we've done through this time for many years will be appreciated as a fantastic deed. So we are going to have many interesting conversations about the technical developments with our energy networks, united networks, and how we are uniting with the Entso-E, and the political story not of less importance than the technical one. And we appreciate that there is a lot of resistance offered by our northern neighbors, trying to prevent us from joining, and people concerned with the energy system of Ukraine working there should be as alert as possible, as busy as one can imagine. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. As soon as Prime Minister joins us, we'll start our event, ladies and gentlemen. Stay put.
Починаємо, і я прошу до...
We are beginning our conference. Denis Shmyhal, Prime Minister of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, please. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, the international partners, friends of Ukraine. I'm happy to greet you all. And this event is taking place under the auspice of the 23rd Summit Ukraine-EU or EU-Ukraine. That testifies to the fact that energy is a priority for our agenda there. There's this old saying that oil is blood of economy. I would moderate it a little bit. Electric power is blood for the high-tech economy. And development of electric energy is for the future to solve. This is a strategic topic of integration of Ukraine into Entso-E and joining accordingly the European network, EU network. That's the energy visa-free regime for Ukraine, approximation to Europe. We will become an EU member energy-wise. Discussing Entso-E, I would like to outline 5 points that testify to the fact that this integration is critically important. Energy independence and safety. Secondly, transparency and democratization. Thirdly, export opportunities. Fourthly, urbanization. And fifthly, upgrade of the obsolete infrastructure, development of new technologies, and that includes energy saving. In our vision, joining Entso-E is a practical step forward. Our colleagues from the World Bank are telling us that the economic advantages from synchronization of our system with Entso-E is at 1.5 billion US dollars every year in additional revenue. So first, sovereignty, energy-wise, talking about the five aforementioned priorities, this is part and parcel of energy security, of course. So integration of this united energy system into the united EU system plays the key part in energy security of Ukraine and all the European continent in general. So disconnection from the Russian grid will lead to the loss of strategic influence of the latter over the energy of Ukraine, but not just that energy sector, also the EU energy systems. Integration into Entso-E will provide for energy independence. It is expected that synchronization in question will essentially increase the sustainability, technical maintenance level, and security of supplies for energy resources. We know that Russia weaponized and is still weaponizing energy and blackmailing us at different levels. We can see the natural gas blackmail concerning commissioning of Nord Stream 2. And we will offer to our European partners starting of strategic energy dialogue at the highest level with the involvement of EU members between the EU and Ukraine. That is for our common long-term vision of energy security for Europe, not just encompassing transportation of gas, but also synchronization of our electric grids, decarbonization of the economy, renewables, and green hydrogen in particular. This integration will play a key part in energy security, security of supplies to Eastern and Central Europe. And that is why it is very important to stick to the schedule. Synchronization should be concluded not later than 2023, maybe earlier, well, hopefully and advisedly earlier. And we will discuss the opportunities and the chances for that, the prospects today. Now about transparency, the second item. It's a necessary condition for integration. We have to introduce into our national legislation the 1227 regulation for the optical energy markets, remit, and anti-monopoly procedures. This is key to transparency of the market that we are driving at. This is about inside information disclosure as a commitment and ban of market manipulation and complete reporting. The regulator will get active powers to respond to manipulations if anybody tries them. The third is export opportunities. The parallel regime with Entso-E will provide for the opportunity to increase our trade with the EU countries in energy because of the more efficient use of the available capacities in our state. Synchronization of energy systems will also increase the investment opportunities, our attractiveness in that, and will open up a new energy market for the European companies. I would like to emphasize that synchronization of Ukraine with the Entso-E will play the key role in energy security and security of supplies of energy resources. This is profitable from the point of view of stability in supplies of energy, electric power for transboundary balancing and stabilization of the energy system. And in Central Europe also opening the market for European companies, as I mentioned earlier. Decarbonization. The long-term prospect of synchronization with the Entso-E is key to the decarbonization of the sector and a way to reach climatic neutrality of the European continent by and large. This will open the doors for considerable increase of renewables in generation. And there portion, and the concept of fair transformation of coal mining regions. So decarbonization of energy sector is the principal way to reach climatic neutrality. And we have to mention here that Ukrainian energy is one of the most decarbonized in the European continent, considering that part of the renewables and the low carbon in the blend is over 80% with us. The upgrading of the assets in 2021, we concluded construction with Energatom, the 750 kilowatt line, Zaporizhzhia and Kakhovska plant to replace Zaporizhzhia NPP capacities, and for the balance, and we had the system of monitor introduced for the transfer and switchover regimes. Together with the World Bank this year, we had successful talks on Modernization Upgrade project for Ukrenergo for more than $200 million, and installment of the system for accumulation of electric power. And this is a project also for our integration with the Entso-E. These are not all the projects. This is just a short list. But we are anyway approaching integration into the European network. We are confidently approaching that stage, and we count on political support of the EU in this process. For Ukraine, this integration is of great far-reaching importance and expected positive consequences. So I'm looking forward to a positive discussion. I wish you a real fruit of such discussions and unification imaginable assistance through technical and political arrangement. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prime Minister. And now we have an online Brussels European Commissioner on Energy, Kadri Simpson. Are we ready for Commission now? I'm asking our technical team.
Shenko, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you today. Like the European Union, Ukraine is on the path towards a transformation of its energy system, and I fully support your work for closer integration with the EU. Ahead of tomorrow's summit between the European Union and Ukraine, today's conference is very welcomed and show the dedication of all parties to ensure work is done thoroughly at technical level, but also supported politically at the highest level. A few weeks ago in Brussels, Minister Galushenko and I had the opportunity to have a good conversation, and we confirmed that one of the primary objectives of EU-Ukraine cooperation on energy is the full integration of the Ukrainian energy market to the EU. And that includes synchronization and synchronizing your electricity network with the continental Europe network. That's the destination we strongly support. Now, how do we get there? There are two areas standing out that will advance the course, and I want to speak about both today. The first is technical and infrastructure requirements. The second is the implementation of the necessary regulatory, legal, and market preconditions. With our Ukrainian counterparts, we are looking into both. So first, on the technical requirements, recent close contact with Entso-E confirms that the outlook appears to be positive at this stage. The majority of the concerns surrounding grid stability have essentially been removed. This is a very good news and opened the way for the test for isolated mode of operation of the Ukrainian network. Entso-E representatives will be in a position to expand on that topic. I know that it is currently set to be performed next year, provided that the regional group of continental Europe confirms the timeline at its November meeting. Second, I want to talk about the regulatory work and the related implementation and enforcement measures. Governance and the independence of the regulated entities are without a doubt the most important aspect. With that in mind, I consider essential the finalization of the certification of Укренерго. There are important aspects to solve in order to move forward in the synchronization. Work on the governance around the TSO is being carried out with Energy Community Secretariat in this respect. Beyond the governance aspects, improving the transparency of the electricity market is also an important goal. As part of that, I include the proper transposition and implementation of REMIT in the Ukraine legislation. As this process is still ongoing as we speak, I hope that it can be swiftly finalized in a way which is fully compatible with the EU. Ladies and gentlemen, looking to the future and to a time when the completion of the synchronization is a firm reality, Ukraine should also ensure at least the same level of cross-border capacities that are now currently available. This will be important for the future integration of the Ukrainian electricity market into the EU's own internal electricity market. Finally, I want to reassure you about our support from the Commission. This is an important project, one that will be mutually beneficial. I welcome Ukraine's engagement and willingness to ensure this project is a success. So let's help each other to ensure the project moves timely, because to make this a success, all technical, infrastructure and regulatory preconditions must be put in place. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words today, and I wish you a good conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Кадрі Сімпсон. Я хочу ще раз подякувати прем'єр-міністру за те, що він знайшов час завітати.
I would like to thank Prime Minister for finding time to politically open this event, which is of utmost importance for us. All, as Ukrainians now, we are switching to this panel discussion. We need 1 or 2 minutes to technically rearrange the stage. This is a technical preparation, and after that we'll start the first panel. We'll have 2 panels. Both of them have to do with the same topic. You understand and appreciate that, and we'll have enough time to discuss it with the most informed people with great expertise. So, dear panelists, when you have your interventions, should remember that timelines are limited with us, and we have 5 to 7 minutes for each presentation and not more. You have to remember that, and you have to stick to the regulations, to the timelines, that is. At the end of the panel, we'll have the Q&A slot, so keep your questions in readiness and be prepared to put them at the end. On which panel now we've done this arrangement. The Minister of Energy of Ukraine, Herman Halushenko, Valery Tarasyak, head of the regulator, and Volodymyr Kudrytsky. And online we are joined by Vyacheslav Zastavnyachi, head of Central Dispatching Office, Joachim Manzet, Entso-E of the board, Roman Rossell, High Representative of the Entso-E, and Albino Marquez, Governor of the Entso Regional Group, Continental Europe. And now let's start. So the topic of this discussion is readiness of the Ukrainian system for integration to Entso-E. Minister, the floor is yours, please. Thank you. First of all, I'm happy to greet everyone. In fact, I would say it's a strategic topic and a strategic goal that we have to reach this integration, and we're discussing it at all the fora. And indeed, we've had many meetings already, especially as of lately, the international meetings in Brussels, with Kadri, Simpson, the Commission, many partners and neighbors. And this topic has been discussed with everyone. And indeed, from the point of view of readiness, well, this is about our clear understanding that we have to divide two things, the technical readiness, and secondly, the so-called regulatory readiness. This is the issue of preparedness of our markets for complete and full integration of the Entso-E. And we understand that, technically speaking, and that was confirmed at the meetings, and by the way, we are very grateful to the partners in Entso-E for appreciation of our technical readiness. Together with Volodymyr, we attended the meetings and we discussed that in much detail, also from the point of view of the state of our system. This is the mix, and one of the best from the point of view of decarbonization. And this is the key issue. Actually, they do recognize that, in fact, this is not Ukraine's advancement. It's not a solitary move. It's very important for both parties, because synchronization of the Ukrainian energy system also does a lot for the European system, EU system, and this is also very important. And technically, we mentioned that there's this draft of reports, and we're expecting its adoption, approval and adoption, and we count on some tiny comments being taken on board and the corrective measures made without any difficulty. We can comply with the conclusion. So technically, Ukraine has covered the distance, is ready for technical synchronization. In the regulatory aspect, we discussed many issues about improvement of the market and so forth. But these are the challenges which are quite implementable. The cards are on the table, so to speak, and we can solve the problems. This is about collaboration which exists presently between the ministry, the regulator, the Укренерго party. We are working together to reach this goal. And I'm sure that in this interagency collaboration, we will reach the goals in question for as best regulation of the market as possible and in accordance with the standards of the EU market. And now our next speaker is Volodymyr Kudrytsky, chairman of the board at NPC Ukrenergo, who will discuss future integration of the two systems. This is the technical part of the story, as I understand. Yes, we have to open the veil of mystery over this process, and we understand that there's great interest from the Ukrainian public and expert community. So whether the Ukrainian system is ready, stands in readiness to join the EU system, and what kind of impediments we can expect in the way of this. And I will start with the overview or the documentation. The Ember Island, Burstin Island, is connected to the EU without being connected to the Ukrainian system, we are still integrated with the so-called CIS countries, 6%, and Ukrainian energy system is one of the biggest in the continent. We operate more than 20,000 kilometers of main lines of transmission lines, 220 to 750 kilovolts, and 103 mainline substations. Our energy mix versus average European has less CO2 emissions, or fewer CO2 emissions, and we have the second most ambitious goal in the continent concerning CO2 emissions reductions. On the Paris Agreement, 65% versus 1990. So what's done presently with this synchronization? Of course, having signed this in 2017, we were supposed to comply with the long list of measures to join the Entso-E in 2023. This date was indicated in the first draft of the agreement, and then reconfirmed on numerous occasions by us together with the Entso-E. And we made measures bringing us into the final stage. It's not done for nothing, does not appear from nothing. This is a result of hard and systemic work. Under that endeavor, we had a whole scope of grid development in the east of Ukraine in order to safely get disconnected from the systems of Russia and Belarus. We had improvement of the grid and reconstruction of the grid for the Western interface. Our Ukrainian generation upgraded the control of frequency and voltage and for the thermal, hydro, and nuclear power stations, testing of cogeneration and hydro and NPPs last year. And presently, we have received the final version of the report for static and dynamic resistance of the sustainability of the system for Ukraine, Moldova, and Entso-E, continental Europe. As to the final results or findings of this result, we had many apprehensions originally, especially concerning the latest PRAT, and I'd like to say that for the static sustainability, this is positive. The Ukrainian system does not require any additional measures to be synchronized with the European one. For the dynamic part, we identified in just one of the many scenarios some technical irregularities, let's call them that, which can be quite easily removed with certain corrective measures. And that set of corrective measures of technical nature is about resetting the system of control for capacity control for thermal and hydroelectric power plants. So this does not need any development of the grid. It takes a couple of months only. It does not require any considerable investments of financial resources for that matter. It's a very optimistic preliminary result of the research. I would like to remind you that it has to be officially adopted by Entso-E. And for the system of control, this reset will improve the system and remove all the irregularities for synchronization. But in summer season, we'll have some limitations of experts at 600 megawatts. And the maximum commercial throughput of our interconnectors at this point, according to our Entso-E, is 2,000 megawatts. So to remove this limit, we will need to set some additional STATCOM devices for our substations. And we are reviewing 4 locations as prospects. It takes 12 to 16 months, according to our estimations from the design stage, starting from design stage. So summarizing, we can say that we are a couple of steps away from joining Entso-E from the technical point of view. And the principal test that we have to pass is undoubtedly the isolated mode operation for summer and winter season next year. The first test we plan to start in a couple of months. And for that, we'll all need to work hard and stay in readiness. So we have already mentioned that OSP certification for the European standards is of critical importance for this process. And Prime Minister and Minister of Energy have discussed the importance of this, why this is important for the Ukrainian public, the Ukrainian society. The synchronization, I would like to repeat a couple of points to explain the reasons for that. This is energy security indeed, but let's not forget that this is also an issue of growing capacities and for interstate energy trade. It will grow exponentially. This is about decarbonization, because no single system is capable of taking the necessary measures to fully decommission, say, the coal-fired generation without possible flexible balancing through interconnectors, exchange of energy with the neighboring countries. And we have no such opportunity at this point, I would like to remind you. And we are discussing synchronization for our state, and it will provide us with a great impetus for investments, transformation of Ukrainian energy sector. And finally, I would like to say a couple of words explaining why this is of importance to Europe, for Europe. In our view, the Ukrainian synchronization will substantially increase safety of energy supplies to Central and Eastern Europe regions. If we look into the long-term TSO estimations, we'll see that in all those projections we have some signals issued to the effect that in the long term we will lack the necessary capacities because the industries are ahead of the generating sector. And the only country that can add this missing capacity to decrease this deficiency in the long term is Ukraine, Ukrainian energy systems.
And apart from that, while opening the Ukrainian domestic market for other stakeholders, participants from other markets, will well facilitate decarbonization, since that way we will enhance usability of the Ukrainian domestic interconnectors that will be popularized across Europe, and we do believe that through our resources they will be able to do what we here in Ukraine do, but in their countries. That is the reason why this synchronization project for the assistance to Ukraine is a project that is ranked as strategically important for Ukraine and for the European market too. Thanks. Thank you, Volodymyr. For that, I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Tarasuk, head of RKP, head of the Commission. To be true, I would like to say that synchronization and the agenda that we streamlined today is not only a leap step for Ukraine and the European market, but it's also a fully fledged stage of entering the global markets for all the stakeholders. So that is the reason, again, why the agenda that we keep up talking over today is of that importance. Those grids and transmission routes that we maintain with Russia and other countries make us scrutinize deeper the work that Укренерgo maintains. Under the framework of the current system that we have for the moment, it's not only about the energy security, but also about the security at large that we should focus on. Today we will talk more about what each has to do and what has been done. On the one hand, much has been prepared in this respect. On the other hand, in terms of regulatory affairs and the Commission, specifically, I would like to say that the measures that we have undertaken, and among them one of the efforts that is the certification of Укренерго, proves that the decisions on certification of Укренерго helps us overcome that a long time that has made us expect the feedback from the Secretariat of the Energy Security, let's say security regulators, and then energy community. And let's entertain a hope that in the years to come, there will be lower expectations from the point of what has to be done. And I guess that in the upcoming couple of months, we will be able to carry out all the actions that we have planned. Thank you. Volodymyr, thank you. And now we are going to switch to the reports of our online colleagues. Mr. Vyacheslav Zastavnetsky, you are welcome. Dear colleagues, please connect us. We cannot hear Mr. Vyacheslav. Deputy General Director, Head of Central Dispatching Office at Molde Electrica. Mr. Zastavnetsky, we believe that the sound is off on your side. On our side, we can hear that Zoom works. If you can hear us, please check it once and again if your sound is fine. Yes, how well can you hear us now? Quite well, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the state-owned enterprise, Moldovan transmission system operator, Moldovan Electrica, I would like to extend gratitude for an opportunity to speak up. Moldovan transmission system operator and synchronization with Entso-E is our joint effort. Throughout the most recent 10 years, we have been working at that, and today, like never, this is an urgent need. And starting with 2006, we noticed more proactive developments. And in 2016-2015, there was some technical analysis on the table where Moldova and Ukraine started talks on how jointly to get connected to Entso-E. As a result of the negotiations in 2017, we concluded agreements on connection to Entso-E, and what today is implied under synchronization and integration to Entso-E as connection with this system that will allow access of Moldova to the European market of electricity, and that will also help liberalize the situation in the electricity market of Moldova. For the Molde Electrica, that will bring in compliance with international standards in electricity, meaning market rules and European standards, requirements. We are approximation with the current EU legislation has been in place for the most recent 10 years. And alongside with that, we need also to concentrate on what Romania does in terms of its allocation of resources towards the same direction. While meanwhile, at the level of Moldova, the state undertakes maximum effort to make the environment better and to implement the current system as required. That is an integral party to the agreement regarding connection to Entso-E in the continental Europe. For that, I would like to share my convincement that through joint assumptions and joint convincements, joint allegations and participation of stakeholders that help us with their contribution, continental Europe has positive expectations only. Thank you. Thanks, dear colleagues. Now we're going to have a slightly surprised surprising format, so to speak, where we'll have Chair of Entso-E, Mr. Entso-E, and Mr. Van Russell, and Head of Continental Europe, Albina Marcus. Everyone is more than welcome to report by turn. Joachim von Setter.
Okay, thank you very much. So, dear Mr. Prime Minister Shmyhal, dear Mr. Energy Minister Galushenko, dear Mrs. Commissioner Simpson, dear CEO colleagues from Entso-E, and dear former Entso-E President Peter Andreasen, dear ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for organizing this event and for your kind invitation and also the kind introduction of us. Entso-E is the European Association for the Coordination of Transmission System Operators for Electricity. Our mission is to ensure the security of the interconnected system in all timeframes at a pan-European level. And in addition to functioning the European integrated energy market. In line with the ambitious target for climate change of the European Union, we also enable and facilitate the integration of renewable energy sources and emerging technologies to the European power system. Therefore, Entso-E has three key priorities. The first one is security. The European power system, especially continental Europe, is one of the largest synchronous electricity systems in the world. Maybe it's the biggest machine worldwide. And therefore, the guaranteeing of the security of this complex system and the security of supply of the citizen is of utmost importance for the good functioning of our society. The second key priority is coordination. Entso-E counts, currently I have to say, 42 TSO members. Entso-E is coordinating their activities in various aspects, including the system operation, including system operation planning, system development, and market development. In this, we can deliver a reliable and efficient power system which benefits to the economy of all Europeans and the well-being of all people in Europe. Third key priority is the energy transition. And you surely heard about that Europe is going with a Fit for 55 program to climate neutral energy production. The TSOs contribute very actively to the energy and climate transition, which is currently accelerated in the light of the Green Deal of the European Union. Currently, we are integrating massively renewable energy sources and new technologies into our system in order to ensure a sustainable energy system also in the future. Interconnecting Entso-E continental Europe, and continental Europe is by far the most biggest interconnected system of Entso-E with Ukraine and Moldova, this will create great opportunities for both systems. In becoming one integrated system, They will support each other with the security of supply. Moreover, bilateral exchange of electricity between Ukraine and continental Europe will become possible, it will become secure, and in future even more sustainable. And now I would like to hand over short to Laurent, who will go further in the contact details.
Hello, do you hear me?
Excellent.
Okay, super. Dear ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. I am for Entso-E, elected governor of the steering group operation. And for the last 4 years, I was governor of the Continental Europe regional group. I remember the organization of the first workshop with the member of Verge on this synchronization project in 2018. It has been a long road, requiring a lot of preparatory studies, but we are now entering in a more concrete phase. Synchronization is a huge challenge, and we don't underestimate this challenge. It takes time because security is our key priority. Security of the grid, but also IT security. It was a long way to collect all the data, necessary data, and to carry out stability studies of the electricity network. Understanding your network and carry out studies of the interconnected with ours is fundamental. There are no compromise of that. Now, studies has been performed to assess how the enlarged system will behave and what investment are required in Ukraine to provide and guarantee stability. The first results show that the synchronization is feasible, provided some investment in the Ukrainian system to effectively support system stability once synchronized. And I heard carefully Volodymyr, and I can understand that you support these studies, and this is very great. The final decision will be made soon by Continental Europe, TSOs, but the preparatory work can already start, and it is in the hands of Укренерго with the implementation of the mandatory countermeasure for system stability and the test of isolated operation. We have to understand that all customers and producers of Continental Europe has at least one thing in common: the frequency. It seems very simple, but it's not. To keep frequency stable, all elements of the system must work together like musicians in an orchestra. This is the only possible thanks to strong coordination, not only of operation in the control room, but also of equipment that must reach together in case of event to support the whole system and maintain frequency. I now give the floor to Albino Marquez, the new governor of Verge, who will give you the conclusion of the recent study, outline the next step on the road to synchronization. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Laura, are you hearing me well?
Yes, perfect.
Yes,
okay.
It's working.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm speaking to you from Lisbon, so the most western capital of Europe to the most eastern capital of the future interconnected system. So it's an example of the dimension of the challenge we are facing. Well, as Laurent said, I have to present myself. I am the new RGC convener for a mandate of 2 years, and I'm beginning the job, but I'm very aware of this Ukrainian dossier, because since a long time, this topic is always on our agendas. So, as everybody knows, the synchronization studies have been performed to assess that the combined system will behave as everybody wants. And these studies show that synchronization is technically feasible, but there are some things to do. there are some, in my opinion, relatively simple investments in the Ukrainian power system. The so-called power system stabilizers must be activated on power plants and tuned with respect to the oscillations that have been detected in the studies. These power system stabilizers are in a few power stations in your system, and the study tells us that some 6 more have to be installed. Another good news is that there are alternatives to these power system stabilizers, but they have to be further examined. The conclusion of the studies is expected in the coming weeks, but there are a few things that we already know. We know that synchronization will wait for the investments I told you. These investments are mandatory to preserve the frequency once the system will be one and is to deliver benefits for both continental Europe and Ukraine-Moldova system. I must emphasize that there will be no compromise on system security. No TSO would accept that. Customers will also not accept that either. Soon, and I mean soon means in one of our next meetings, continental Europe TSOs will decide on future synchronization with Ukraine and Moldova based on the commitment of Укренерго and Moldelectrica to successfully perform tests of isolated operation and to implement the necessary investments before synchronization takes place. Isolated operation means that the system, the electricity system of Ukraine and Moldova will be disconnected from Russia and operated as an island. These tests consist in performing a planned outage of one of your power systems and monitoring how the system behaves. All necessary measures are taken, of course, will be taken by you, by Укренерго and Moldelectrica, to assure that these tests will have no impact on Ukrainian and Moldovan customers during the tests. We need 2 tests. One in a summer day with low consumption and one in the winter day with a very high consumption. And for the moment, for me, it's all. I pass the word to Joaquin, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Albino and Laurent. Maybe I will, after that more detailed technical analysis, I will be able to summarize again on a more political way. I can say that all TSOs of Entso-E, especially, of course, those from continental Europe, from the interconnected system you will be connected to, all TSOs are enthusiastic to make this synchronization happen and to make history by enlarging and strengthening one of the most largest synchronous electricity systems in the world. The road towards the synchronization is now clear, as Albino and Laurent explained, and we are committed to accelerate if it is possible, but always in the light of the necessary technical requirements and system security. Continental Europe TSOs will soon make their final decision. The implementation to meet the technical requirements is in the hand of Укренерго. Managing one of the most largest synchronous electricity systems in the world is a daily challenge that requires focus, determination, and full commitment. There is no compromise on system security, whether they are from continental Europe or from Ukraine or Moldova. This is the core business of all of us, of the TSOs. Entso-E and its members are also thrilled to soon count a new observer member first with excellent knowledge as well as experience, and to develop strong bridges with Укренерго on various aspects from system operation to market and to grid development. To summarize, the TSOs of Entso-E therefore warmly welcome Укренерgo and Moldelectrica in their family. Thanks you very much.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you, colleagues. And I just want, я лише хочу попросити всіх присутніх подякувати нашим європейським
For that, I would like to extend our colleagues here to extend the gratitude to our online guests today. Thank you for being with us. In my view, the opinions that we have heard are quite positive, and the assessment that we have received is indeed very pleasant. And now I would like to pass the floor to the very last speaker of this panel, Mr. Zoltan Tehani. You're welcome.
Добрый дня. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, it's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. So the most important things have already been said by our colleagues from Entso-E. On behalf of Mavir, the Hungarian electricity system operator, I would like to welcome also the efforts of Укренерго and Ukraine and Old Electrica also in the common work to prepare for the synchronization. Being a neighboring TSO, and we have been already working together with Ukrenergo for a long time due to the cooperation with the Bursztyn Island. So we are very much interested in this common development, and also we expect a lot from the future. Let's say much safer system security, which we can reach together in this region and also in the closer neighborhood. So participating in the project, following closely the work done already and the rest which is in front of us. We support Ukrenergo and Mold Electrica for a successful work and successful project. And we look forward very much a new and much closer cooperation with you in the near future. And I wish you success for all of us in this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Шановні колеги, отже, ми, власне...
Dear colleagues, I guess that we had a delight to hear maximum speakers today on the current developments in terms of current integration into Entso-E, and this is high time to pose questions directly to our speakers, both online and offline, here in the studio. Dear colleagues, welcome. Please raise your hand and I will pass the floor to you. Once you get a question, raise your hand and we'll pass you a mic. Dear colleagues, Sergei Nagornyak, MP, member of Utilities and Housing Committee of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. That will not be a question, rather commentary to share with you. While listening to the viewpoints, to points voiced today, you know, there was rigid criticism. And for the views that MPs at Verkhovna Rada shared across onto the beliefs that we maintain today, and the line committee that has just voiced its pro for the certificates in terms of promoting and advancing the bell on the defense of certification in energy security. Mr. Valery, the head of the line committee, and everyone involved, please accept my big thank you for your joint effort. Without your determination, it might have been quite hard with the promotion of coming closer to Entso-E, and I'm glad that Mr. Volodymyr has a very powerful, amicable task today, and I'm confident that the deadline will be set tight and it will be met on time, and any action that might arise along the avenue will be brought successfully into life. And I believe that with time, Mr. Volodymyr will reconvince you once the opposite if occurs. Dear colleagues, once you have a question, please let me know. The Ukrainian Truth, Ukrainska Pravda, online media resource. I have, well, a domestic question. Once in the heating period, some difficulties happen. Will that impact the development of synchronizing the Ukrainian energy system with Entso-E? Well, this is a sort of question in the electricity domain, and for that I would like to say that nothing for all will impact the Ukrainian integration. Thank you very much, Dmitry Sidorov, Expro Media. When do our colleagues from Entso-E prove or assure publicizing of the report on Entso-E? And what is, so to say, the proof that nothing will prevent us to speed up towards Entso-E synchronization? On the one hand, we have already heard the poses voiced by our Entso-E colleagues. On the other hand, if to take what they said into consideration, that might serve as a proof for the above said, and the arrangements will be signed this October, as it was preliminary set out, and in November this year, regional group at a plenary session of Entso-E will approve the deliverables, outcomes and results, and they will define possibilities for the launch of an isolated regime next year winter. This means October will be a kick-off stage where the arrangement will be signed off, and in November there is an expectation to start a plenary session of Entso-E. In respect of the so-called démarche, or saying goodbye to the domestic players, in terms of some failure in terms of synchronization, but rather those that might shape themselves later and brought into life as some willful, violent action, or some breach, or some, let's say, default in meeting commitments, at least theoretical, in case of such a breach or default. I guess that the sanction will be indeed very rigid.
About the reserves of coal, we know the coals are critically low, and we understand that nuclear power generation, even with all the units, cannot replace the capacity of coal-fired generation. So here's the question: will this influence somehow or impact the sustainability of our energy system in winter season, or heating season, in other words? Let me try to start, and our colleagues from Entso-E can complement that. The isolated regime will last for several days, and we still have to decide when it will start, to schedule it. The philosophy of this isolated regime is not a test for the survivability of the energy system. With our colleagues from Entso-E, we are in dialogue right now for us to pass this test in the most comfortable way imaginable. Of course, with the coal reserves, we would like to have bigger stock presently, but there is a plan of some sort as to how in this situation and how we can schedule accumulating those reserves for the autumn-winter season. We are getting ready for this regime, not just with the reserves of fuel. This is a comprehensive task. I can tell you that the Entso-E also looked into the issue of the isolated regime. And the report that we expect to be approved in the nearest future, there will be a whole section on the isolated regime, and there we can conclude that we are ready for that. There's understanding of the program of tests for the energy equipment in this isolated regime, and we do not expect any special technical challenges related to the former or the latter isolated regime as such. Dear colleagues, I would like to thank you. We have trespassed on the time unduly a little bit, but that's how we designed this session, this panel. Nobody is disappearing from here, so we have questions to the Ukrainian, participants. There will be still time, and we'll discuss that to the Entso-E representatives. Well, if no questions we have, then we'll use the break to discuss that. Great thanks and a round of applause to our speakers.
Рівно ми розпочнемо наступну панель. Прошу всіх морально
Dear colleagues, in 7 minutes.
Починати наступну панель, тому прошу всіх займати свої місця. Dear friends, we will start after 1-2 minutes. That please sit down and take your place. Прошу займати місця. І я запрошую панелістів.
I would like our panelists to take their seats. Andrei Harris is here, and Janusz Kopacz, the most disciplined panelists.
James Hope, please take your seat. And, будь ласка, Ольга Стефанішина, запрошую вас теж до нас на сцену.
And Olga Stefanishina, we would like to invite you to this podium because we are about to start our panel. Dear colleagues, please be seated. We are beginning our panel now. So let me formally introduce all the panelists for this session. And the topic for this panel is the situation in Ukraine after synchronization with the Entso-E. What position we will have and what should we expect after hopefully successful union, and we will discuss that with very distinguished and most adequate interlocutors. Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Ukraine, Olga Stefanishina, Andrei Harris, Chair of the Energy and Utilities Committee of the Parliament, Janusz Kopacz, Director of the Energy Community Secretariat, Torsten Bollert, Team Leader Energy and Environment in the Support Group for Ukraine, and James Hope, Director of the Mission in Ukraine, Belarus of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Olga Stefanishina. I've listened to all my predecessors with great attention. I'm not going to focus on the importance of this discussion. Quite frankly, I'd like to draw your attention to the two principal constituents or constitutional parts of this discussion. Well, discussing the synchronization, which is due in 2023, by 2023, we have to understand that by and large this process is planned and it is part and parcel of the European integration. In 2015, Ukraine received the visa-free regime for the Schengen zone. That was for Ukrainian people, for the people, and tomorrow we will sign the agreement on the joint aviation space, and Ukraine will be part of that respect, at least, of the EU, and by the end of 2022, the beginning of 2023, will become part of the energy family of the EU nations. These processes inseparable from our physical integration with the European communities, the EU, and coming back to the continental European markets family. And we've heard the important messages from the European Commission. Tomorrow, the EU-Ukraine summit is due. So after so many years of discussions in the joint declaration, we expect to see official stance expressed by the EU in favor of synchronization. Isn't it true, Torsten? Well, this will be a little sentence in a big document. For the first time, though, the EU will support politically the process of synchronization. Last year, when we had talks in preparation for the summit, there was no such stance reflected in the joint documents at the level of at the presidential level. Now, the second element is very important. Well, the point is that this synchronization is important not just for Ukraine, not just geopolitically, but it is very important for the European countries, the European Union. We've discussed a lot the European Green Course, decarbonization, and so forth. And there are many countries of the EU, Germany among them, in active preparation for this coalition or e-coalition agreement that deficiency of electric power will increase as we go towards decarbonization and making the economy green. And the Ukrainian market of electric power is one of the biggest donors on such resource. And talking about the opportunities provided by synchronization, we should mention not just Ukraine and its advantages, but Ukraine's readiness to provide for the growing needs of the European countries in terms of energy resources. Speaking on the geopolitical dimension of this project, we would like to say that we cannot but mention the hybrid and the proxy threats, the crises in the energy sector. You know that tomorrow, in the course of the summit, the energy issue, energy security issue, energy sustainability will be one of the principal ones for discussion. And I'm aware that this discussion will be joined not just by a Ukrainian team, but also President of the European Council, European Commission. And Ukraine is one of the most sustainable countries. We have no hyped expectations as regards the Russian Federation geopolitical projects, the gas wars, natural gas wars. The EU have been having that for decades now, with the support of the international partners, the big players in the energy markets. The process of synchronization, this is the element in which we can have the geopolitical unity. And solidarity, this is very important because Ukraine has already complied with all the necessary synchronization requirements. And I understand Volodymyr has already informed you, or will inform you, on the technical peculiarities of this process, the room for improvement. But for the natural gas market, the EU have already recognized that Ukraine is in compliance with all the European standards and practices. We hope that this positive example will also serve as a suit to follow for future progress and integration for all the other sectors of energy as regards the European family of nations. So, summarizing my short discussion, I would like to say, number one, the geopolitical and political Ukraine is already joining the EU markets on the one hand, on the other hand, we can see that the process of the synchronization is in favor of the European Union. That's for their benefit. So thank you, Madam Stefanishina. We understand this presented from the Ukrainian point of view, but there are many specific points. So Janusz Kopacz, Director of the Energy Community Secretariat. Well, I have this inner feeling that there should be some optimism, but a cautious one. And optimism should still implement its potential, so to speak. Janusz, please.
To say that I'm very happy with this high agenda, or this attention to the integration process. Somehow it is the top political issue in Ukraine, and of course energy community as being, let's say, a bureaucratic, flexible but still bureaucratic institution, puts this at the same time in parallel into a very important position. Of course, further interconnection of energy markets has three aspects. Two of them today were mentioned. The third one seems less relevant, so it has this political, but this seems it's not an issue anymore. technical and legal aspect. About technical, it was told a lot, and it's not on me to discuss. Legal is our, let's say, domain, and but I have to stress, and later I will illustrate this with one detail, all these three issues are sometimes very separate, but it could happen that at one moment some of them are very interrelated. Among legal issues, there are several. The first most important one is certification and everything what is related with the certification of Ukrenergo. But many things are going beyond, and I will not talk a lot about them because it is not for this moment, but I would just like to stress that this will come on the agenda as well. Very important one is CO2 price, price for carbon dioxide emissions, which is in Europe now extremely high, in Ukraine almost nothing. And of course you cannot integrate two markets which are so different in conditions. So this will come on the agenda, not now, not next year, but it will come. There is compliance with large combustion plants directive, which will also come on the agenda, because otherwise you have this export of, let's say, electricity which is not clean enough, and so on. But this is, let's say, for the medium future. Immediate future, certification. When we talk about, so certification was now done. I mean, first opinion from regulator, it came to us last week, and now it is on us, on the Secretariat, to assess it. Secretariat has 4 months time, but I promise we will be shorter and faster. I would like to stress a few elements which we see as important for certification and its implementation. One of them is capacity allocation on borders of Bursztyn Island, so it means with Poland, Slovakia and Hungary. For this we needed changes of the law. Mr. Gerus promoted it, it happened. Now we are facilitating cross-border capacity, joint cross-border capacity allocation with transmission system operators from Poland, Hungary and Slovakia. I think process is on its good way to be implemented, hopefully with with monthly capacity allocations in summer, towards summer next year, and this will then be hopefully solved. The other one, which was mentioned already by Prime Minister, is REMIT regulation. I think this is on its good way as well. There are several draft laws in the Parliament. We promoted the one which was proposed by Mr. Gerus. The third is ITC mechanism, intertransmission capacity mechanism. Remuneration mechanism. This will, Ukraine would benefit from it. Of course, Entso-E requests some preconditions. Certification is one of them, but there are also others. One of them, which is very important, is cost-reflective transmission tariff. In Ukraine, this is not the case currently. NERC is charging, or in the methodology, and then Укренерго is charging so-called export fee and import dispatching fee. This is not compliant with the acquis and has to be changed. It can be changed in two ways. One is to prescribe details in the law again. This would be very slow, but one is just to change tariff methodology of Укренерго and transmission network code by regulator. This would be much faster, but it has to be done. And we just received, I know that Supreme Court of Ukraine somehow rejected all the complaints, but situation is still non-compliant. So it has to be solved. We received a complaint from one of market participants last week, and we will start most probably infringement procedure against Ukraine, but I hope this will be solved soon with some goodwill. The fourth element which I want to stress is financial stability of Укренерго, transmission system operator. You know that sometimes I say Укренерго is like a tax authority. They have to collect this renewables surcharge and distribute it as public service obligation. This is not task of transmission system operator, and this renewable surcharge somehow has to be transposed into the, or transferred into the special tax. Financial stability should not be endangered. There are also other ideas. We saw 2-3 draft laws circulating in the parliament about financing storage facilities, and few of them, of these laws, have another idea of having a special public service obligation on Укренерго to finance storages. That's the same unacceptable way or unacceptable approach as it is the case with renewable surcharge. Then there are some other, let's say, less visible, less important, less urgent things in this moment. One of them is that to adapt capacity allocation methodology the way that at least 70% of cross-border capacities will be always offered to traders to trade. Because many transmission system operators across the Europe are trying to limit the trade through through security of supply concerns, and this is why European Union adopted a regulation, it's called Regulation 943, which obliges European transmission system operators to always offer at least 70% of capacities for the trade, and only 30% for security of supply reserve. And Europe, or European Union, solved this through an obligation. Energy community, this obligation didn't take over yet. It will, I believe, next year. But it has to be taken into account already now. I have to say, I'm not accusing anybody in Ukraine. It's a general situation in Europe. Transmission system operators are very happy with congestions on the border because they get income from this, you know, but this is not good for consumers and it's not good for traders. So this has to be released somehow. We calculated that in energy community in general, only around 30% of cross-border capacities are offered for the trade. 70% not. In Ukraine, this is not the problem currently, because it borders only a little bit in Burштyn Island with EU and a little bit with Moldova. So most problematic are Western Balkan countries, where they're limiting this the way I described, but has to be taken into account as well. And just to illustrate how these legal issues are sometimes related, I will not mention political, but technical issues. There is, for example, currently ongoing debate, and we hope we will solve this in next few months, cross-border capacity allocation with Moldova and balancing. But Moldova, for example, has a big question mark. It is 2,000 megawatts in Transnistria, which is not controlled by Moldovan authorities. And this is, let's say, I won't say an elephant in the room, but a tiny elephant in the room, which needs to be tackled and solved as well. Otherwise, these technical issues can not, I won't use word
Yadesh, I know.
Oh, sorry.
We have technical issue for 2 hours discussion without any doubts.
Okay, that was all I wanted to say. But I think with such a good political will and support, which was expressed today through different high-level speakers, I hope we will solve everything in a good way, and wish you all the best. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Дуже цікавий був виступ, як на мене.
It's been a very exciting presentation, political and technically, very optimistic in my view. But there's this regulatory issue to be added, and our next speaker is the best suspect for this kind of discussion. Andriy Heros, chair of the Energy and Utilities Committee of the Ukrainian Parliament. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and for the discussion, this excellent opportunity, which is very timely, I think, especially now, when we see all the difficulties with the energy markets, all the imaginable difficulties, and that actually focuses our attention on the necessity to integrate the markets, have joint markets with different nations in solidarity, and fighting for against different negative phenomena. It is becoming more and more important, this avenue of approach. Generally speaking, if we discuss the background of this matter, this is not the first day or year when we discussed this unification issue. There were two ways discussed to that effect. One avenue of approach is the asynchronous, this AC, or synchronization. And I think that any way that provides you with the result is correct. The most important thing is to achieve the goal, reach the destination that you had in mind. Synchronization is about some technical developments, also legal aspects from the primary and secondary legislation. At the Parliament, we have done things. We have some legislative decision certification for Ukrenergo is a critically important law to certify our equipment, and the next stage is about synchronization as such, and also joint auctions for export and import on Burstein Island with the EU countries. And also it's a critical thing we have been referring to. This is Ukrenergo. Well, speaking of this energy storage systems, our committee adopted the finalized draft, and in that version we have no language discussing this being funded from the transmission tariff of Ukrenergo. That will be all the market operations, no additional burden for the tariff. The TSO won't be created. We hope that the Parliament will support this very draft in the first and the second reading. And that is why we have this circulating for a couple of months at the committee. The remit draft has been referred to. In the nearest future, we're going to discuss it. It's about prevention or countering some manipulations of the wholesale markets. That can be done by some companies with considerable power, monopolists or next to being monopolists without any illusion. This will be very difficult to get through the pipeline. And please closely watch this process. I hope that we shall overcome someday. Well, now discussing the issue of what position or situation Ukraine can imagine after this synchronization. I would approach this issue with some rationality and pragmatism. And first of all, here we need this market's economic effects in mind. Issue number one in my book is to increase the capacity, the transboundary across the borders, because uniting our system with Poland, Slovakia, Romania and Hungary, to be exact, with the balancing of the electric energy, with the import-export equilibrium. And the markets will balance the situation themselves. If the energy is cheaper here, we export, import, vice versa. That's how the market is balanced, the united one. And we have to think about our markets in a year or two or three, and we'll see what the future has in store for us. Because it's all very dynamic. One of the problems that we can imagine for the future is this part of electric power. Even before the synchronization, it's done by the coal-fired assets and then exported to Europe. And this is the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And in my opinion, and Janusz was referring to that also, we have to discuss our environmental taxes. It should go as revenues to the Ukraine budget or used for environmental upgrade, and instead of this being taxed in Europe and used as revenues for some needs of theirs. So I think we have to proceed concurrently to avoid unpleasant surprises. And generally speaking, our unification is very important for the balance of the system, and better energy independence for Ukraine, because we have four neighboring countries with the imbalancing arrangement. The more such countries we have, the better, naturally, for diversification and the energy independence or energy sovereignty. Currently, we have this relationship when we have the summer period with the surplus and deficit and autumn and winter season. This is technically and economically important. Tomorrow, one day before, we have the record 3,000 hryvnias and more for 1 megawatt per hour. This is because of the deficiency that we are facing, and you know that the importation of electric power is practically banned, because you can just take it from Moldova and there is nothing being offered by Moldova. This is a step forward from the point of view of technical, our technical system. This will be a step forward. We have to work, all of us. In my opinion, the principal work is done by the Parliament, especially from the point of view of technical synchronization. But for the future, we'll work together in order to set the Ukrainian rules in consistency with the European market. Unfortunately, there are some initiatives in Ukraine in straight conflict with the European regulations, because there are some commercial interests, and it's an open secret that some of them are in direct conflict with the market rules. The number one priority for us, though, is to compliance. It's a great informal conversation that you started, Andriy. A good approach from the Parliament. Now I would like to turn it over to Torsten Wollert. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here, and it's also very nice to see so many people who have worked over the last years to come to this spot where we are now, where we can start to think about what happens after synchronization. I think it's the first time that we publicly discuss this, So I think it's a very clear sign how much of the way we have already gone. When we started discussing Entso-E synchronization with different scenarios, and I remember Yannis also was involved, and lots of people here in the room were involved, there were lots of question marks, and I think the question marks has become much, much less now. We have, of course, outstanding issues, but I think we have, if you compare it with the marathon, we have done at least 80–90% of the questions. Now, what is important that we are clear about the last 10–15%, and that we also do this in a safe way, so that we do this, what needs to be done, without speeding up, without slowing down, but just do it in a professional way. And we heard it also in the first session, certain issues are so important that there is no compromise possible. And this will be shown in the process with Entso-E, on the stability of the operation of the grids, with the tests. So we really have to be very well prepared for the last 15%, because it would be very, let's say, it would be a pity if we have done such a long way just to have problems on the last stretch just before the finishing line. So what we are interested in from the European Commission side, and also the Commissioner said this very clearly in her welcome speech, this is the integration of energy markets. In this context, the Entso-E synchronization is a tool. It's not the end of it's not the aim. It's a tool. So that's why I'm very glad that we can discuss what we want to do after synchronization, how we want to integrate our energy markets. For this, we also have agreed, and Commissioner Simpson and Minister Halushenko agreed this 2 weeks ago in Brussels also, that right after the summit, the EU-Ukraine summit, which will take place tomorrow here in Kyiv, we will have a working group, a dedicated working group on energy market integration. So exactly to discuss what do we want to do, and this will be on electricity, and it will also be on gas markets. And tomorrow at the summit, as Olga Stefanisha has said, it will be focused more on the high-level political discussion, including energy security issues. But this expert group, we want to achieve that gradually we integrate our markets so that we get the benefits of these integrated markets. Of course, it's also energy security, but it's also more efficiency, it's clarity, stability for investments, it's modernization. Also, this morning we heard about decarbonization. And it's also benefits for the consumers, because in the end, we of course hope that industrial but also household consumers will have a choice of supplier. The one who is offering the better products should get the better market. And this is the mechanisms that we try to develop. And we are now opening a new chapter. And Yannis talked about the problems. And I think we will discover, while we go, we will discover more of these issues. But we know where we want to go, and we know that it can be solved. So that was my message as well. Exactly. So for us, the most important message, I think, is we are on the right way. We know where we want to go. We have seen all the graphs here about the timeline. But even if these timelines change a bit, this is not a problem. The most important thing is that we have good teams working on all the issues, clarifying all the issues. Also, I'm very glad that Energy Community Secretariat will participate in this working group. Also, I understand Укренерго will participate, so all the players will participate, and that we really reach the consensus that is needed to make these markets work. Because markets is not just a piece of paper, it's really, let's say, confidence and trust in these commercial relations, and only then you get the modernization and the investments that you require. Because Ukraine, also as the Prime Minister said, has this opportunity, this chance to turn itself from a fossil fuel importer into a green energy exporter. The market is ready, we have the policy framework in place, but of course it's a lot of work for all of us here. And the last word, which I liked very much in the first session, it comes from Laurent Roussel, who said, who compared this process to an orchestra. So we are all musicians in an orchestra, and our task is to make a nice piece of music altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Torsten. It's really optimistic. Thank you. Я хочу передати зараз слово Джеймсу Хоупу.
And now I would like to pass the floor to Mr. James Hope, Director of the Mission in Ukraine and Belarus of the United States Agency for International Development. Role of USAID is very hard to exaggerate, since from the point of technical and consultants work that they have done, this agency is of paramount importance.
Доброго дня. Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to just really start by thanking the Ministry for inviting me to join this very distinguished panel with great colleagues and Deputy Prime Minister Stefanisheva as well. This is such an important discussion, and you know they say sometimes it's tough to be the last person to speak on a panel.
Sorry, you are not last person. We have also some online member of panel.
Perfect.
Don't worry.
Good to know. Because we really have this important topic to talk about that is a sort of symbol of Ukraine's progress and down the path towards being fully independent and integrated into Europe, in this case via Entso-E. So for the United States, of course, this whole topic of energy cooperation, energy security is a key issue, a key part of our commitment to Ukraine. In fact, on September 1st, when Presidents Biden and Zelensky met, and the joint statement that they issued included a very clear and robust discussion and reference to energy issues and how the critical role that plays in the broad United States-Ukraine partnership. And so we firmly believe that synchronization with the European grid will help Ukraine become more self-reliant and better insulated from interference from others. Now, as I know we've talked throughout the day, almost all of Ukraine's electricity system is connected to a grid that leaves it very vulnerable to exploitation, both economic and political. And that makes the Entso-E integration synchronization process much, much more than just a technical infrastructure project. It's actually a national security priority. And under the status quo, Ukraine's interconnection with the Russian Federation is not only a barrier to a fully operational, competitive electricity market, but it's also a vulnerability. And the government of Ukraine, through the great leadership at Укренерго, has worked steadily to prepare its grid for synchronization with Entso-E since 2017. And through USAID, the United States, as well as our other partners at Department of Energy and State Department, but we've all worked together to actively support the efforts of Ukraine to get this moving, to get us started on that marathon that Torsten mentioned at the beginning. So, for example, the results of the dynamic flow study completed this summer by the Entso-E project group not only reflect the quality of Ukraine's preparations, but also clearly lay out what additional work is needed. These results show that Ukraine can be ready to synchronize in 2023 if it has the support of the Entso-E members, and I think we've heard a lot of that today, and of course the continued high-level political commitment of Ukraine's leaders, which we've also heard quite a bit today. So although the study is encouraging, we know, and as always, that there are still plenty of challenges, both before and after synchronization. However, as the expansion of Entso-E in other places in the Balkans and Turkey has demonstrated, these challenges can be overcome. We stand ready to continue our support to Ukraine as it takes this critical next step in integrating with Europe. It's critical, however, to continue to take the difficult steps needed to fulfill commitments to regulatory reform and competitive market development. While these are not technical requirements for synchronization, they are necessary for the country to fully benefit from the integration process and demonstrate Ukraine's commitment to market principles. Moreover, synchronization can be an important catalyst, as we heard, to drive further improvements in market operation by improving liquidity, expanding the potential for cross-border electricity trades, creating new drivers for transparency, and stimulating more competition in the electricity market. And, also as we've heard, it will play an important role in decarbonization. While Ukraine's current electricity generation mix in terms of carbon intensity is roughly equal with Europe's as a whole, we know that there is still ample potential to decarbonize further. Synchronizing with Europe's grid will bring in new opportunities to increase low carbon exports, import clean power from elsewhere in Europe, and reduce the leverage of fossil fuel generators at home. So I'd like to acknowledge Укренерго for its technical expertise, persistence, and leadership. And I'd also like to commend the Ministry of Energy for elevating and supporting this issue at such a critical time, when the question of integration moves from being a largely technical engagement, the first 20 miles of the marathon, to now a whole-of-government effort to get us to the finish line. Now is the time to work together and support all of the entities involved in addressing any additional regulatory barriers and reducing any other outstanding risks. It's ambitious, and we know that there's more challenges. However, synchronization, it's clear, is achievable in the near term through our collective efforts. And of course, in final thought, USAID and the broader US government assistance program has been an important supporter of grid integration and will continue to be so. We stand as US government with Ukraine so that the Ukrainian people can realize the benefits of integration of a vibrant economy based on competitive, transparent, European integrated markets. Thank you for your attention and good luck to us all.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your support. And now I want to give floor to Head of Supervisory Board of Укренерго, Shefkia Junora. Online, are we ready?
Can you hear me, Bell?
Yeah, it's great. It's working.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. In fulfilling its mandate towards ensuring Ukraine's energy security and independence, Укренерго really needs to be a cost-efficient and reliable TSO with a sustainable operational and financial profile, providing the necessary reliable transmission capacity and equal unbiased access to all producers and consumers. It also needs to be, of course, able to plan and make the long-term planning and investments needed therefore. Similarly, the market structure, rules, mechanisms need to be fully conducive to the efficient functioning of the system. In today's complex world, we all know that independence is often associated, linked with, and even conditioned upon interdependence through partnership with reliable and like-minded partners. And partnerships only work if partners can be of equal standing and that the deal works for all partners. It requires a competent, strong, independent, depoliticized regulatory environment with a strong, modern, and reliable Укренерго on both financial and operational terms as it regards Ukraine. And it really requires an open-mindedness and willingness to assist, support Ukraine on the part of European partners. As to what happens after the membership, the partnership, after Ukraine's integration, it also very much depends on a well-planned, strongly disciplined, and well-executed partnership agreement and sticking to the game plan by all parties. And I'm therefore very pleased to see and partake in this gathering of key stakeholders to discuss the progress so far, but more importantly, to reaffirm the steps for the remainder of the agreed roadmap. Like all of us here, I firmly believe that Ukraine and Europe are irrevocably committed to be reliable partners, and that Ukrenergo and Ukraine will be able to play not only an important regional, but also a Europe-wide role. I am confident that the outcome of these and tomorrow's works and discussions will be beneficial for all of us, and I wish you all a very good luck in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we will have a last participants of our panel. It's Silvia Martinez Romero, who is the head of energy direction in World Bank. And I believe we have connection with Silvia.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, thank you. Floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, thank you for organizing this workshop and for offering the World Bank the opportunity to participate and provide our views on this important topic. My name is Silvia Martinez, and it's an honor to be with you today representing my. First, I would like to start saying that indeed power, as it has been mentioned and repeated today, power system synchronization with Entso-E and the future market integration that will be enabled after synchronization is critically important for Ukraine, for the interconnected continental European system, as it will provide significant benefits to both, in our view. Beyond the enhanced energy security that we have heard a lot about it today, synchronization will also bring competition and transparency in the electricity markets. As you know, currently, Ukrainian electricity markets are characterized by low competition that offers the opportunity for a few players to exert high market power. High competition and alignment with European markets will lead to more efficient energy markets in Ukraine. And we think that in the mid or long term, this will lead to lower prices. Economic benefits also, of course, derived from synchronization are, of course, very important. No? There are estimates that reports that show that maybe around $1 billion US annual benefits could be derived from synchronization. Other reports are even more optimistic, but we are convinced that these benefits are going to materialize and will be very important. And of course, synchronization will also provide important benefits in terms of decarbonization, as it will enhance the renewable energy integration in the system, and it will support the NDC goals of Ukraine in the long term, that, as you know, is net zero emissions by 2060. We think that without synchronization, this will not be possible, and this is a key step to achieve NDC targets. Then we would like also, we also want to highlight that the World Bank has been closely supporting Entso-E synchronization over the years, particularly from the technical standpoint, the engineering standpoint. As you know, the second power transmission project finance Укренерgo's grid infrastructure and operational tools that are necessary for synchronization, as well as the dynamic studies that have been conducted by Entso-E consortium. So we have been monitoring very closely this process, and we offer and continue to offer our support in anything that is needed through projects or technical assistance financed by the bank. Also, the World Bank has just approved, as you know, a new project that will develop a large-scale battery storage facility with Ukrenergo that is also aimed to enhance the grid flexibility and capacity of ancillary services capability in the system. This could play a very important role to minimize the risks during the trial period during synchronization, and we think that this also will be very important after synchronization. In addition to these lending operations, we have provided technical assistance and policy advice as requested, and we also have worked with Moldova, and we are providing financial support for the grid strengthening and assisting the proposed back-to-back interconnection, which will help stabilize the synchronized power system and may also help to reduce some risk for Ukraine. So, however, in addition to these technical aspects that we have been following very closely, we also think that the legal and financial aspects highlighted by Energy Community Secretariat are very important. In particular, financial stability and sustainability of Укренерго and the electricity sector as a whole are very important for synchronization. And in this sense, we really welcome that the government has taken significant steps, and Ukrenergo as well has worked very hard to show that the financial sustainability of the company is possible. And we just would like to highlight that the government leadership is critical to finalize, to ensure that there is a financially sustainable TSO that then can be certified, and not only for the certification, but in general, it would be really important to keep a financial sustainable TSO over the time. We stand ready to support market synchronization after synchronization as well. And we will be really keen to support the transborder trade and to support Укренерго to become a regional TSO within Entso-E. We know that Укренерgo is constantly improving operational performance, and we are ready to support not only with our ongoing project, but also with future projects, additional investments required for the synchronization, but also for the market integration to increase the trade and research sharing with Entso-E. We believe that given its size, technical capacity, and regional position, Укренерго is very well positioned to become a regional TSO, which shall coordinate with neighboring TSOs towards full market integration. And from our side, we will continue to provide our technical and financial support towards synchronization and market integration. We are already trying to fundraise to provide support for market optimization and alignment with European markets as needed. So I stop here, and I wish you all the best luck on this, and we hope to continue this fruitful collaboration moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I believe it's a lot of work beside us. Я хочу подякувати всім, хто виступав.
For that, I would like to extend gratitude to everyone who spoke up here on the podium and online. Should you have any questions to the panelists of the second panel, please go ahead with your questions. You're more than welcome. Hello, thank you for an opportunity to speak up. I'm Vitaly Korniyenko. I would like to address Mr. Garas with a question on readiness and capacity of the Ukrainian parliament and its line committee to liberalize the electricity market. Well, the parliament of Ukraine has an its composition some MPs who will defend liberalization, and the opposite is also true. What post will you defend? For the parliament, it is absolutely ready. The line committee stands ready as well. For the resolution on liberalization of the electricity market, it's available. No other resolutions, either decisions are required. The best answer ever. Thank you. Any other questions? Please go ahead with them. I'm Sergei Horbachev, Senior Advisor to the Energy Security Project. Being as one of the most active observers of the poses of the panelists, I would like to state that quite promising prospects are ahead of us. For expectations in terms of integration, technical, above all, I would like to say that Europe has the third energy package is void as of the 3rd December. There is the fourth energy package, clean energy to each European. That's the motto that it bears. And following the motto statement that Mr. Kopach voiced recently, and implementation of the fourth energy package, I would like to state that for the countries of the European energy community and the changes four of us and upcoming steps towards improvement of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement. Are there any leap steps that you would like to write and to add? And speaking about Vice Prime Minister, what urgent priorities would you like to single out and pose on these issues? Olga or Mr. Garris, who will report the first?
Clean energy package is basis for market liberalization, market opening, good market functioning is still third energy package. Clean energy package added few elements, and in case of electricity, it added new electricity directive and electricity regulation, which I tried to describe earlier with this 70% rule and so on. Electricity directive will be on this ministerial council in November this year, so it will be transposed, it will be legal obligation for Ukraine, but it doesn't bring big changes. Electricity regulation, unfortunately, is not on the agenda yet, but I hope it will be next year. But in general, also other pieces of clean energy package are on the agenda for this year, Ministerial Council in November. So they are coming in. And network codes, which are still unfulfilled request from the third energy package, are unfortunately not all part of energy community acquis yet. But they're very important for normal functioning of the market and, of course, interconnection. But everything is work in progress. I'm optimistic. Torsten previously said Janez was only listing problems. It's true. It's true. But we and of course Ukraine are solving these problems. This is important. But there are challenges. Nobody can deny. But challenges are to be overcome. And I hope, I'm sure, we are on a good way.
Thank you, Janez. Olga.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say I have to be a little bit of bureaucrat, you know. Otherwise, I cannot only say everything is perfect, you know. But important is this positive message. We are solving the problems.
Та у нас дійсно дуже збалансована панель. Є різні меседжі, але дуже цікаве питання.
There is a variety of messages to remember, I should say, and our capability and our ability to stand ready to adapt new ecological commitments and novels as they arise. And for the work that we maintain, the pace is an issue since it's rather not about our vision of Ukraine as an under-party in an EU and multilateral dialogue. It's rather about our financial capacity and dialogue with financial institutions and the Parisian agreement and incapability of Entso-E to support this process, since we haven't yet reached any mutual understanding on how well we should be prepared to sign off the agreement. And speaking about the stakeholders of the energy community and synchronization of multiple markets and the Ukraine Association Agreement, unfortunately, so far we can see default and under-commitments in terms of achieving these accomplishments that might signal our capability to reach these objectives that were set out as priorities on the agenda that we outlined. And for the Ukrainian side, it's about to proximize the Ukrainian legal frame towards the European frame, where there is a necessity to present the current accomplishments for the international community so that we should be ready to liberate joint commitments and negotiations with the Czech Republic, for instance, or Romania, where our colleagues from these countries address us with a string of questions regarding our ability to fulfill standards and commitments undertaken. And later, when we obtain some requests from the European Commission and the commitments from the European Commission, everyone will agree that we remain on the same page with you. Andrei, do you have anything to comment on? Anything else to add to the SAD? For the cure to the situation, I would like to say that the new frame that we have developed and functionality of grids changes are there, and for the questions.
99% політиків.
Look here, 99% of politicians, perhaps they are not members of the opposition bloc, are in favor of that. This is like a warm bath. We are all ready, or seem to be, moreover, for the fourth energy package, the parliament part. This is market price setting and removing as much as possible of all the subsidies. Reserves are not for the parliament to solve. This is the TSO matter. And whether we need some accumulation storage systems to be introduced without subsidizing. Yes. And we have reviewed that at the committee. Can generators already operate in the market? I'm not talking about the capacities designed and built 5 years ago, perhaps not, but the most recent ones. Some green tariffs are still in effect till the end of this year. So I'm in favor of this implementation of the fourth energy package, because this is about the market. Market grounds where it is reasonable to introduce them, wherever it is possible. And there are people who are not in favor of the market in its all manifestations, in its all segments. Can I put a question? Look, Entso-E is not a political committee. There are 42 companies, operators, TSOs from 35 countries, and all the politicians are in favor. I do not doubt that at all. But can we invite for our next meeting TSOs from Poland, Romania, Slovakia? Hey, they were here on the first panel, for the first panel, all the key partners. You just missed it. Oh, well, sorry. Sorry for that. Perhaps I missed it, but it's done. It's we ticked in the box, Torsten.
I think in the context of Ukraine, to really get clean energy to all Europeans, meaning all Ukrainians, it is, of course, a question of the legal framework and of laws, but I think what is most important is the question of investments. Because if you facilitate investments in the energy sector in the 21st century, in the 21st year, it will be clean. Even China has now abandoned plans to finance coal-fired power plants abroad, if I understand this correctly. So when you invest, you will invest normally in clean energy. And this will be, I think, the most important thing also for the functioning of the market and for the competitiveness of Ukraine's energy system in the long run. Because you synchronize the grids, you have the physical capacity to trade, but you need to be competitive. And this is something which I think is one of the big tasks for the coming years, to make sure that this modernization of the energy sector will happen. And we, of course, hope that it will happen as part of a joint market, and that, you know, European companies can invest here, Ukrainian companies can invest in the European Union, so that we really get this integration that the Deputy Prime Minister was talking about.
Дякую, Торстен. Знаєте, я дозволю собі останню ремарку як
So thank you, Torsten. My last remark in my capacity of moderator for this panel. We have discussed the necessity of investments on numerous occasions. We mentioned the destiny of the Ukrainian energy system after the synchronization. I'm looking at the map with the day before prices. It's 100 euros. We set that record in Romania, 233, Hungary, 228 euros. So I can feel that investors are interested in the Ukrainian energy system, would like to synchronize. That's my feeling anyway, my immediate impression. I don't think there's any other way due to different reasons, not just selling at a higher price, but the energy security and the destiny of a country as a European nation will depend on the experience about joining Entso-E, and we'll know and understand better our destination, our avenue of approach, and the momentum that we have to maintain with all the available efforts and opportunities. Let's thank our panelists for their valuable contributions, for their opinions, and thank you very much. So we have a collation to offer to you, I understand. So enjoy the refreshments.